Okay, they're good.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody.
Recording in progress.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. I just got to get this message off there. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby. I'm going to first introduce the staff members that are with us this evening. We have Walter Basic. If you just wave your hand, Walter, Assistant Director of Planning, and Michaela Bray, the Assistant Secretary Treasurer of the meeting. And the committee members this evening, we have 4 out of the 5 present this evening. Myself as chair, Kevin Antonitis, and we have, I'm just going to go around the screen here, Herb Nobes, if you just want to wave, Adam Mottershead, Adam, welcome, and Dylan Bailey. There's Dylan over here. So there's 4 out of the 5 here this evening. So I'm just going to make an announcement regarding live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. So I'll just outline the procedures this evening as well. So for the purposes of a Zoom meeting, applicants will be placed in the waiting room until your application is heard. The purpose of the application, any relevant correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak as well. At the conclusion of this discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant or their agent, as well as any other person who files a written request with Michaela. And any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal the decision itself or conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the date of, or the mailing date of the decision notice. Everyone present will be given the opportunity to comment on the application being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Agencies commenting on applications may request certain conditions be imposed, and voicing conditions to or objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committees have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. So do we have a, we're going to do a disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does any members of the committee have a pecuniary interest in the matters before us this evening? No. And I have none. Do we have any withdrawals or adjournment, Michaela?
No.
No? Okay. Everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes of the previous meeting that was February 15th. Were there any comments or questions about the minutes? If then, do I have a mover and a seconder? Herb, did you have a question or is that a motion?
A question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Regarding the application of the extension of, or the addition of the shed setback for the property that has been, was not on the agenda, but was added to the property. I feel that we have done that in the past, added areas, and it should be left on the minutes as passed by the committee, and the committee is the only one that can change those minutes. Therefore, I suggest that they be put back on. If there is an issue with it, it should be brought to the committee, and the committee should be correcting it or voting on it through the proper channels.
Michaela, do you have any questions or comments, or other members? I would agree. I mean, those were minutes of a meeting that actually took place. If they feel it was incorrect, you can't change the minutes. The minutes occurred were just notes of what occurred, I guess, right? So if the decision is invalid, then they can challenge that, but the minutes can't be changed to reflect what actually happened. I saw Adam nodding. Do you have a question or comment, Adam?
Yeah, just Mr. Chair. Yeah, minutes just reflect basically what was done at the meeting. So that's what would happen. So I don't think they should be changed.
Okay, then do we have a mover and a seconder on the minutes as amended, as suggested by Herb? If you want to make that motion to amend the minutes to be left as is, without the scratch out. Oh, you turned yourself on mute. You were actually on.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that the minutes reflect the actual happenings at the meeting and be corrected.
Seconder? Adam? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? Was carried. Okay, and then we have 4 applications before us this evening. We're just going to change the order slightly to group the Olive Street ones together. So we're going to put Olive Street Part 4 down to being number 3 in the agenda, just to group them. So we're going to start with application A1122 491 Heisert Road, and we'll just give a minute or two while everybody else is put into the waiting room. Just let me know when you're ready. All right, so we'll have a brief presentation from Michaela on the application, outlining it, and a overview of the correspondence received and so on. And then we'll have the agent add anything that they'd like to add. So we'll start with Michaela's presentation. Go ahead.
First application is A1122 for 491 Heisert Road. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a 2-story addition on the existing dwelling. The variance that they're requesting is to permit an exterior side yard on the west side to have a setback of 7.11 meters, whereas the 12 meters is what is required. This shows the site plan that was sent out on the notice, highlighting where the 11 or 7.11 meter setback is. This shows the context of the subject site highlighted in yellow. Just to note, it borders West Lincoln. And the exterior side yard setback is the part along Heisert Road, as the shorter of the lot lines is considered the front lot line in this case, which is on Mudge Street. This shows the current conditions of the site as of October 2021. And we received correspondence from the following agencies. So from planning, no objections; from the no objections; from the Conservation Authority, no objections; Grimsby Power, no objections; Heritage, no objections; and Grimsby Fire, again, no objections. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the owner or the representative here this evening?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vince, would you like to elaborate at all or expand on anything? Didn't look like it was too controversial from a public agency perspective. Sorry, we can't hear you.
When I applied for the permit,
There
I
we
was
go.
taking for granted that Mud Street was the front, and it wasn't. Mud Street is considered the front yard, not Heisert. And the address.
Sorry, Mr. Vince. We're gonna have to have you go a little closer to the speaker because we're having trouble hearing you. At least I am.
When I first applied for the permit, I took it as Heisert being the mailing address being the front yard setback, and apparently it's Mud Street, which brought on this minor variance. There, it's just to stay in line with the house that's existing. It's pretty straightforward, really.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee members first? None from Adam, Herb? Where's Dylan? Oh, there you are. Sorry, right in the middle. None? Okay. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Pretty straightforward application. Dylan,
I so move to approve the minor variance because it meets the 4 tests,
thank you.
as it meets the 4 tests, sorry.
Yep, thank you. And a seconder on that motion, Adam? Any further discussion on this matter? All those in favor say aye, or raise your hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So it was approved, subject to the usual 20-day appeal period before it becomes final.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Okay, we'll give you a minute just to reload the applicants. Okay, so the next application is for 40 Viking Drive. Michaela, go ahead.
Yep, so application number 1322. They're requesting minor variances to facilitate the construction of a single car garage addition and a second story addition on an existing dwelling. The 3 variances they've requested are to permit an interior side yard on the north side of 0.7 meters, whereas 3 meters, that should say 1.8 meters is required. Their second variance is to permit a south side yard setback of 1.6 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. And just to note, that one is to legalize an already existing side yard as a second story addition is going on that side. And the last variance is to permit a front yard setback of 6.4 meters, whereas 7.6 meters is what's required. The site plan that was circulated on the notice, highlighting where the 3 variances are. So on the north side where the attached garage is proposed, the 0.7 meter setback. And then in the front, so on the west, 6.4 meter front yard. And then on the bottom, where the existing first floor already is and the second story is proposed, the 1.6 meter setback, just to legalize that one. So here's a aerial of the neighborhood just to show the site context and what's around it. The front elevation of what's proposed. And here's the existing conditions of the site as of October 2021. And for correspondence from the planning department, there are no objections. However, there's one condition requested that a grading plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department. From the region, no objections. From the Conservation Authority, no objections. Grimsby Power, no objections. Heritage, no objections. And Grimsby Fire, again, no objections. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I think we have an agent acting for the Mike Lucician. Mike, would you like to add anything? Sorry, you're still on mute.
There we are.
There we go.
Hi, everybody.
There we go.
Yes. Any questions do I have?
Yeah, did you want to add anything at all to the presentation so far? There was no objections or comments. So
has informed me that 2 of her neighbors that would be like pretty much mostly impacted by this are on board and everything. So like we've knocked on neighbors' doors and made sure they're all happy with everything and they're all good. So, you know, we didn't have them join this or anything, but that is the case. So yeah, that's about all I have to add.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members first? Dylan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just assuming the reason for the side yard setback is that without that, the addition which would allow the garage wouldn't be possible. Is that correct?
Correct.
or would be very tight otherwise?
Did you get that, Mike?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know if it was to me or you. sir.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, so yeah, so the problem which we would have is like with today's, like they have a growing family, and the thing with the cars are any smaller, you're not even going to be able to pretty much open your door in the garage to get a single car in, right? So that's kind of the problem that, like, yeah, you could walk in, or say you want to hang some shovels on the wall and then open your door, like things are getting pretty tight. So that's why we've requested that, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, and there's no one in the on the screen from the neighbors requesting or asking for anything. So if not, then do we have a motion from someone regarding the requested variances and the reasons, meeting the four tests or not meeting the four tests? Adam, you wish to be a mover and a seconder, or a mover, sorry?
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve as it meets the 4 tests and be subject to the condition of the sort of the drainage plan according sort of in Public Works.
Right. Thank you. A seconder? Herb? Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So it was approved, subject to the 20-day appeal period before it becomes final. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank
attending.
you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, and I'll give you a few minutes again to switch to the next one. I guess they're kind of related if there's people speaking, but we can do them one at a time.
Yeah, I'll let them all in for the 138 all list. So yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, are we doing, sorry, part 4 first and then 1? Thank you.
Yeah, we just move 4 down. Just give a minute here, make sure everybody's in on these 2 applications. So we're dealing with first 138 Olive Street, part 4 is the first one. And we'll have Michaela go through a presentation outlining the application and any correspondence that we've received from various agencies. And then we'll open it up first to the committee members and then to anyone in the audience or the public that would like to speak or ask questions about it. So go ahead, Michaela.
You. So this application is number A1022 for 138 Olive Street, part 4. So this is the easternmost of the lots. It's a minor variance to facilitate the construction of a new single detached dwelling. That would be 2 stories. So the variance that was requested by the applicant was to permit a building depth of 25.3 meters, whereas 20 meters is permitted.
I can do it here.
So here is the site plan that shows where this building depth measurement is taken from, the 25.3 meters. That's the same one that was circulated on the notices. Some elevations of the proposed dwelling. So the front and the rear elevations, as well as the side elevations. So west on the top and east on the bottom. Here is the aerial photography of the neighborhood to show the context and where the subject property is. Here's the current site conditions as of October 2021. And for correspondence, planning has no objections. There is one condition that has been requested, that the applicant receives NPCA approval for the construction of the proposed dwelling. From Niagara region, there are no objections. From the Conservation Authority, there are no objections. They note that the lot falls within the NPCA regulated area. Therefore, all future development or site alteration will require a circulation to the NPCA and an NPCA works permit. From Grimsby Power, no objections, and they note that they're working with the applicant already for electrical servicing. Heritage, no objections, and Grimsby Fire, again, no objections. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is the owner or their agent here? They'd like to elaborate on that, on the request?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair, I'm Nick Norzad. Wife and I, Sona Norzad and I, planning to build our permanent home there and retire there and live there. We love the city of Grimsby and we really enjoy living there. Currently, we live in Grimsby and we live on 77 Palmer Road. So we managed to purchase this land and hope and dream to build our permanent home there. I'm a semi-retired engineer and architect, licensed and professional, and hoping to build a modest house for me and my wife and my 2 grandchildren and my daughter and my son. And it's nothing out of ordinary in that area. All the houses are similar to this. And I'm not obstructing any view or casting no shadow to anybody. So therefore, I think it's a very minor variance.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone that on the committee first that would like to ask questions? Dylan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, it was noted in the staff report regarding the design that's been submitted has a flat roof, which is not permitted, and that an additional variance would be needed should that want to go forward. So I guess perhaps maybe just for clarification for myself, through you or through Mr. Basic, is that design work handled through site planning and we would approve this variance, but then the actual design would be approved at sort of another stage and a variance come further should a flat roof continue to be wanted?
Walter?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The applicant has a couple of options. One is to revise the plan to not have a flat roof. So another option would be to ask for a deferral of this application so that they have an opportunity to revise the application to include that provision should they wish to continue with a flat roof design.
Nick, did you wish to elaborate on? I'm looking on the plans. I maybe I'm missing something. I don't see a flat roof on it, but on the part 4.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
There is a few houses in that row of the street, all has flat roof. So maybe I was mistaken. There is no bylaw to does not allow me to have a flat roof. So I'm assuming there is a bylaw to allow me the flat roof because the other houses has a flat roof. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the picture of it. But if you look at the house, 2 houses from me, that house has a flat roof with a stucco white structure. However, I would like to add that one to my request if we can approve that one so that I can move on and build my house.
Now I see it, Walter. I just noticed that it was the low slope. Is that what you're going to say? Slope. Yeah. Go ahead, Walter. Did you wish to?
Yeah, no, just for clarity, the house that was previously constructed with a flat roof was constructed prior to the adoption of our current zoning bylaw. So it's a new zoning provision we have in our zoning bylaw. So that's why there's an existing house with a flat roof, which was consistent with the previous zoning bylaw that was in effect in the area. Again, should the committee, if the applicant wishes to consider the addition of a variance for a flat roof, I would recommend that the committee defer a decision on this application to the next meeting to enable. Oh, I don't know if there's an opportunity because we'll have to recirculate also another notice to include an additional provision.
Okay, so was this missed then in the original application, or was it only discovered when they submitted the plans after the circulation?
It was discovered after.
Oh, okay. What's your offense to a flat roof? Just curious from a zoning perspective.
There isn't an offense to me.
Oh, I'm just curious why it would be in the zoning bylaw. I've never heard of that before, but anyways, it's other than they leak a lot. Do we have any other questions from the committee members first? Because I think we'll get into trouble again if we make the same amendment with like we tried with the shed. They tried striking it out, but so I would agree if they want to proceed with a flat roof, I think it should be recirculated because to be fair to the process. So, but that's my comments. But were there any other questions from the committee members first? Just making sure I got everybody. Herb, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you, does the applicant have any objections or concerns about postponing it to the next meeting or even the meeting after when it's appropriate to have it put back on the schedule? Is he adamant about having a flat roof, or is he willing to change his plans and put in a slope roof?
Nick?
I don't want to put a low pitch roof, right? But the design motive is to look modern, and like currently in Ontario, everybody is building that way, and it's a European, I think, influence, which I'm not agree with it. But anyway, yes, I can manage to put a low pitch roof as long the pitch is not more than 2 to 6 to 8, something like that. And Mr. Basic would know that what is the minimum slope.
Yeah, we use the building code as through you, Mr. Chair, we use the building code as a guide to determine what a flat roof is. I believe a 6-to-1 slope is what the threshold is in the building code. And once it's at that slope or shallower, different roof construction, different roof membrane is required to be installed with the roof. It's a 6-to-1 slope that I believe is used as the threshold.
Okay, I'm okay with the 6-1, so that shouldn't be any problem. 6-1 is good.
Okay, so that's all. Then it's not required. The variance would not be required then. Any other questions? Herb, you had your hand up, or was that regarding the slope definition? Okay. Any other questions from the other committee members? If not, then are there people in the members of the public that would like to speak? If you do, we just get your name and address for the record? I don't know if I see a Miro. Did you wish to add a comment or a question?
Yeah, the comment is.
Sorry, can we just get your name and address for the record?
I'm Miro Kabay. I'm at 162 North Service Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the retaining wall was removed in the back. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that retaining wall was holding the slope, so it's not so steep. Now it's removed. Now the slope is not stable, right? So
I think I hear your concern, and I think that's why we have the condition attached from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority that they need their approval first before they can proceed.
Yeah.
And maybe Walter can speak to that. Walter's got his hand up. Walter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to the Conservation Authority's review, the applicant will also be required to submit with the building permit a lot grading plan. So the slope stability measure that was previously there may not be a shoreline erosion issue. It may be just a slope stability issue that our Public Works Department will have to review and consider with the submission of a lot grading plan. So again, however the rear yard of the subject lands is graded will play a role as to whether or not a retaining wall is required. So there, we don't know how the applicant intends to grade the rear yard. So there may be significant changes to the grade, but we haven't seen anything yet. So that will be considered by our Public Works and Conservation Authority.
Thank you. Does that address your
Yeah.
concern?
No, this, it changes the setback from stable slope alignment by removing that wall. So the setback was set wherever that line is, at the yellow line, that's where the setback was. Now, by removing that wall, that setback should be pushed back towards the road.
Yeah, that's something that will be considered by the Conservation Authority, as well as, and this setback that's shown on this plan. That's an overlay setback that we have in our zoning bylaw. It's not a hard setback. Where all that setback does is alerts the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority to any construction within that area is required to receive their approval. So without any requirements of amending or modifying any zoning provisions. So that's why it's an overlay instead of a hard hazard setback.
So in other words, even if this was permitted by the committee, he would still have to satisfy the setback from NPCA. So
that's correct. That's correct. Because construction is occurring within that setback, within the hazard overlay, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority is required to review, among other things, the suitability of the existing shoreline protection, as well as the determination of where the stable slope is.
Okay. Does that help, Muriel?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or I can't see the screen. Oh, there we go. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to this?
Yes, Anthony Murphy. I did send in a file to Michaela. It is another long file, but we'll get through it pretty quickly.
Anthony, what's your address?
134 Olive Street.
Okay, thank you. Did you wish to go through it, or is Michaela? Oh, Michaela's doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Just before we start, my wife would like to speak first, and then I'll go through to this. Yeah.
My name is Anne Ward Murphy. Can you turn it around to me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The one big question I have is that the survey that was supplied by the owner, there's a major discrepancy between that survey, our survey, and the town of Grimsby's measurement of that lot. According to the town of Grimsby, the east side of the lot is 75.57 meters. According to our survey, it is 75.57 meters. According to the survey that was supplied by the applicant, they say it's 82.74 meters. My question is, why is there such a large discrepancy, which is 7.17 meters or 23.5 feet, that the applicant is saying that the length of that lot is on the east side? And if everything is being measured off this 82.74 that they have, well, then that's able to push everything more north on the lot for construction purposes. And any type of variances or any type of erosion control or any type of setback is subject to that 82.74, which is 23.5 feet longer than what the town say it is and what we say it is.
We have some sketches that will show that as we go through.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Anything else?
Just show them. Also as well on the survey, the surveyor has said that our house is a 2.5-story house. It is not a 2.5-story house. It's a 2-story house. So when you're considering about the roof and the pitch of this new applicant's change in the roof, do not compare it to the adjoining property that it has 2.5 stories. We only have the regulated 2 stories.
And that is with the the garage has an occupied loft above it, so the space above the garage is occupied. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so
Ask Walter. So what I've asked that question of Walter. I believe you're in the planning department.
Yes, he is.
So why would there be such a discrepancy?
Walter, did you wish to comment?
Which discrepancy would you like me to address first?
The length of the lot according to the town of Grimsby compared to the survey and our survey.
Is there a discrepancy between the town's document and your survey?
no,
the discrepancy is between plans that we've seen for minor variances and adjustments for the lot beside us. And they were drawn out by the town of Grimsby and they gave a measurement of that lot.
Yeah.
Our survey agrees with that.
Yeah.
But
so our plan, the town didn't draw the plan. The plan was submitted by the applicant. So I can't answer to the discrepancy there. And also the with reference to the note of the 2.5-story dwelling, I agree. Your dwelling is a 2-story dwelling. It's not a 2.5-story dwelling.
mm-hmm.
That's really all I can say about that.
I'm still confused with the because we went back on documents for that were submitted to the town, and actually a bylaw was changed for that when they were changing it from 1 to 2 lots. And this is a map provided by the town to give the previous owner the estimated where the hazard line would be changed to. This was supplied by the town of Grimsby, and the east side of that lot, the measurement for the east side of that lot is 75.57, which agrees with our survey. It does not agree with the survey provided by the current applicant.
And again, I must say that
82.74.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Walter.
I have to remind you through you, Mr. Chair, that the town doesn't prepare the plans. The plans are prepared either by the applicant, and the plans that were are either subdivision plans when the subdivision was originally registered would have dimensions on it again, and those aren't prepared by the town. Those are prepared by surveyors. And if there was a consent application, whether to create 2 lots or whether to create 3 lots, those plans also are prepared by Ontario land surveyors and registered at the registry office. And the plans that are registered are checked by the registry office.
They're checked by who?
The registry office.
Okay, so why would there be a 23.5 feet difference between what the land registry office has for our property, because the other property doesn't go out any further, and the town of Grimsby have 75.57, and their surveyor has 82.74. So
right.
I know the town does not prepare the survey. I know that. And what I'm saying is there is a big difference between what the town and we have as a survey compared to the applicant. And,
right. Thank you.
There's
Yeah.
a discrepancy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, it really doesn't have a bearing on this particular application.
Right.
Application is with regard to the depth of the dwelling. The only variance that's required by the applicant is the depth of the dwelling, which exceeds 20 meters.
But the
So the length of the easterly lot line has no bearing on the depth of the dwelling.
Right.
Variance.
Yeah. So just before you proceed, Herb has his hand up. So I'm going to ask Herb. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you. There's this discrepancy. Do you have any slides that are showing this discrepancy and which maps they are and so forth? Right now, it just shows a basic screen without any information on it. So do you have any documentation that's part of it? So could we see that documentation?
Michaela, is that on that presentation from Tony?
It is on the present. Sorry.
Okay, so we'll have Michaela go to that page first. But I agree with Walter. We're kind of getting off topic here. The length of that boundary is not at issue here. It's the requested variances for the length of the house, whether it's sitting from the front going back or beyond the back of your house a little bit. But the two differences are a surveying issue. And I can suggest from reading enough surveys over time, it's probably related to the top of bank or the water level taken at a different point in time. But I'm not a surveyor. I'm just offering an opinion that may account for some of the differences. But maybe we can take a look at that presentation. But I think we're getting a little bit off topic regarding the requested variance. It's nothing to do with the length of that property line between the two of you. So Michaela, did you have a slide that is going to elaborate a little bit on what he's suggesting or what she's suggesting?
I have a presentation from the applicant. So if they have a particular slide in mind, I can show that displaying.
From the applicant or from the?
Yeah, this is the applicant's presentation.
No, this is our presentation.
The neighbors, you mean, Michaela?
I mean,
Not...
yes, sorry, yes. The Murphy's presentation.
What if I can suggest? Let us go through the presentation in one pass, because then it'll be quicker rather than jumping back and forth.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Okay. So are you going to go next, Tony?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So starting with the page here, simply because we looked at what was required in terms of information with the amount of variance, and I have not dealt with the town of Grimsby previously, but I've been involved with a lot of municipalities in submitting permits and processing permits. And my understanding has been in all cases that whatever the requirements are have to be satisfied. And I won't mention any municipalities, but if there's a dot missing in an I, it's not acceptable. So I have a checklist here of what has been and has not been provided. And I'll go through it very quickly. There's notes on it, and anyone can have a copy of it afterwards with our specific comments. But some of this information is absolutely required to make any decisions. But I will make one comment about the 7.2 meters. It may not relate to the development of the house, but it does relate to the development of the house, because we're all looking from the front and walking backwards to the back, the construction line at the back. But what's going to change this, and it would be unfortunate for the person, the new owner of the property, to have to go through this process. They can, they've spent a lot of money designing a house, pre-seeding, et cetera, and this, but whether we like it or not, this relates to all three lots. But when the NPACA come into play, and we spoke with them, they're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis, obviously, but they're going to start looking at the removal of the wall. They're going to look at the slope has been modified. They're going to look at the dimensions. And the words that we got from them is they're not going to look at the drawing to determine dimensions. They're going to work from the shoreline backwards, and wherever their hazard line is determined to be, Whether you can build either side of it is that's all part of the process. But if the current applicant is assuming they've got a 7.2 meter additional area on this lot, then they're at a disadvantage because they're going to find that that's a problem. And let's cut to the chase. None of us want legal issues down the road. Either us, Mike on the other side of the three lots, or the three people in between. So we want to resolve this and resolve it up front so there's no issues. So
just another thing on that. Regarding that lot, when it was being split into two lots, there was a zoning bylaw amendment on May 15th, 2007, and it was changing the rear lands from hazard open space to residential R1 zone. The amendment to the bylaw 077174 was drafted on May 15th, 2007. This was, the residential zone was extended and the northerly hazard line was changed to a 15-meter buffer setback requirement measured from the top of the bank. So when we're measuring this and where placement of house and lands are, if we're measuring with 21.5 feet extra, that buffer zone is in the wrong place. It's supposed to be from the top of the bank. And that was set by the town of Grimsby, and the town of Grimsby gave the previous owner a drawing, which was where they showed where that would be. So it has to be, the buffer zone has to be 15 meters from the top of the bank. Now, this is not shown on any survey or any drawing that this applicant has shown, and it's critical for the proper placement of construction. So you may say the length of the lot doesn't really make much difference, but it does when it's regarding the buffer zone and where the house will be placed. The Conservation Authority, there was all conditional on shoreline protection was to be installed, which it was. And the town of Grimsby were to determine the adequacy of erosion protection in consultation with the MPCA. In 2021, the erosion protection at the slope of the bank was removed from the entire width of all three properties, just around the time of the selling of those properties. Now, maybe that was to give an illusion that it was a larger lot, we don't know. But these questions, I think, should be answered before any more amendments are given to these three lots. We feel that as residents of the town of Grimsby, that we're entitled, not just want, but are entitled to be given a correct survey before we're being asked to make decisions on any amendments. I think it's our right as citizens.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to cut it short. Tony, you had a presentation to go through yet. We do have a 10-minute, I should have said at the very beginning, we had a 10-minute allowance for each delegate. So Tony, did you wish to go through your presentation briefly? But again,
yes,
keep it specifically to the length of the house. That's the variance here. And I hear you about the length of the lot and the buffer and the setback, but those will all be addressed by the NPCA. And like I said, it doesn't matter what we approve here tonight, the NPCA could overrule all of it if it doesn't comply with that 15 meter from the top of bank. So they will establish top of bank. They have experts in that and are familiar with the shoreline there. So they will review the shoreline protection and they will do the measurements back. And if he can't comply with the NPCA, the variance, whatever we give, will be null and void anyway. So they're the experts in the shoreline setback. We're only, as the committee, dealing with the length of the house. So the requested variance is for an increase of the length of the house from 25.3, I think it was, to 20 meter, from 20 meters. So if you could just focus your comments on that, Tony, just to speed things up a little bit here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we expecting many more variances on this property through the process? Because the last thing we want to get into is one variance after another building upon itself, and one affecting another. Is there an intent that this is the first and final, or do we expect more?
I'll ask Nick if he's got other plans for more variances, or is this his, we can't stop people from applying over and over again, but I hear you, it does become more than a nuisance. But Nick, maybe you can address that question.
Mr. Chair, I just want to assure the neighbor it's not, we are not building a monster house, and we're way off of the shoreline protection and all those things, the 15-meter buffer. And we are not affecting anything except the length is because we put the garage in the front, because we have a very short corner at the front driveway. So therefore we put the driveway, the garages on the angle. So therefore we requested this to increase it by 5.3 meter to accommodate the garages. And all the comments they had, I think they are not investigated, and these lots are registered in Ontario, and it's governed by the Ontario government. So the lot line you're talking about is nothing to do with the city or me or him. Whatever that is, it's their property, and my property is my property. So I don't think that's an argument there, so just go to the land registry office and get a copy of it, and they will tell you the exact dimension of whatever they require. But on the other comments, we are not affecting anything, really. It's just a benign, simple house we're building in it. We are asking for extension of 5.3 meter, which is not a big deal. And we have a Mr. Basic office, which I very appreciate of them, and they did professional job, and they review it, and they say only 5.5 meters like other houses in the neighborhood. There's no big difference. So to my knowledge, to my humble opinion, it's a very minor opinion, and the gentleman and his wife is really hyped out on something not really there. Like they're talking about things that doesn't exist.
Okay, Nick, so the question was from Mr. Murphy, is there an intent to apply for more variances in the future? Or is this the only one that you can foresee?
At the moment, that's the existing one, but the future, okay, I cannot tell you.
Okay. So, Tony, can we just have you go through your presentation briefly? Yes. We kind of got sidetracked a bit here, so I apologize, but maybe if you can get back on track here for us and take us through your presentation, but we'll have to keep in mind the time limit.
Okay. The next page outlines the requirements on the submission, and passing through the if you can keep scrolling, Michaela, go through to past 2-3 pages. Yeah, so again, this is the requirements, and I've taken these requirements. If you go to the first table that comes up after this, that's just a sample. So on this table, the items in the left column are directly from your document, and anything that's in red, and for purposes of part 1 and part 4, I've identified both here, and it's pretty much the same discussion. So that's the next topic of discussion. So property line dimensions are incomplete. There are dimensions on the original severance drawings that are not on the current drawing. So to make a full packet of everything, you've got to assemble the pieces, and not all the pieces are there. The NIDA drawing has a scale of plan, size, type, buildings and structures. The drawings that we got don't indicate, the only mention is that it's 2-story in the written wording. There's no we saw elevations here tonight for the first time, but there is no clarity in the document, as is required by the town description of what a sketch should include and/or a legal survey. The dimensions between buildings and structure, the dimensions to the adjoining buildings has not been provided. And street names and property, okay, the street name is missing a 1, but no big deal. But the property lines are a mess, to put it mildly. It's not just in one direction, it's in 2 directions. There's a 450 millimeter discrepancy east to west. There's a 7.2 meter discrepancy north to south. And on top of that, if I can ask Walter a question, the interactive map on the town website, I've taken dimensions off that, and the dimensions are all working for me. They're all accurate within millimeters, except on the east to west. Whereas if I take the dimensions off those drawings on the interactive drawings, it's telling me that the current development of 3 sites is 3.3 meters plus wider than what it is. But from what I see myself on the city documents, the tax, the records on the city records, etc., and our documents, there's at least a 450 millimeter discrepancy east to west. Now, a 450 millimeter discrepancy east to west and the 7.2 millimeter meter discrepancy north to south, that in itself is significant enough to say that these documents are unclear, inadequate, and I haven't gone through the list yet, and shouldn't be presented, because at the end of the day, a property bar is a property bar. It's corner to corner, and that is the property. I work in construction. I've hammered property bars into the ground, and I build millions of square feet of buildings. And I can tell you, a property line is a property line. And I'll show you in the sketches quickly what is there and what is accurate. I'm 100% comfortable that the 75.57 dimension is 100% accurate. So where this dimension, and you'll see it when I get to it. Where this dimension, oh, funny story. The surveyor who did the survey came to us the day he was here. He asked for a copy of our survey. Glad to provide, so we did. And he had the survey from our property. He confirmed that he found the iron bar, and then they produced a survey that's 7.2 meters longer. Literally, that bar is in the water. So to me, that's a showstopper. I'm sorry. Michaela, if you can move forward. Number of stories. The only indication of number of stories is the written words. There's no indication of the drawing how many stories. There's no indication of a flat roof. Correct me if I'm wrong. I read it somewhere and I can't find it. There is a requirement, and it comes up here for later, that the applicant is required to develop and present the impact that the variance would have on the neighboring properties. And at some point I read somewhere that as far as developing elevations, but it does actually, the document that we're looking at now will tell us there's additional information required, such as how the applicant has to look at the impact on the adjoining houses. We'll see that as we go. Michaela, you can go to the next page. Parking spaces and maneuvering aisles. That information is not shown. We'd like to work with our new neighbor, and work things through for them. But the last thing we want to see is them developing a property here where they can't turn the car into the garage, and those turns look very tight. But whoever designed this house is required to look at those turning circles and number of parking spaces. This is a requirement. The driveway location and the width properly sized and spaces numbered. Sidewalk and curb locations. One of the properties, part 1, sidewalk and curb is not indicated.
Hey, Tony, I'm going to have to cut you off here because we're not dealing with parking requirements or any other things. Okay. We're focused strictly on the length of the building. So yes, he has to meet all those to get a permit, and he'll have to satisfy the city or the town that he meets all those requirements. But if he doesn't, he's going to have to come back to the committee or change his plans to do that. But our request here this evening, with all due respect, is strictly on the length of the dwelling. So can you speak to that impact on your house? Yes. Okay. And where to focus it for the committee members' benefit here?
Mayor, I beg to differ with that. This document that I'm quoting is a requirement of the minor variance. This information is required to be provided with the minor variance as it relates to the property, and as the presentation that we've seen has no reference to how the variance will impact our comfort, our home, and our neighbors. So I'm beside myself trying to figure out why, if this is the requirement, why it's not been satisfied. These are simple things to provide. The information is already there. Somebody has it. But if this information was provided, we could look at this the same as everybody else and say it's done. So I'll let this document go, but I suggest it be read, because if you scroll down through it and look for all the red and orange sections, information is missing. Sorry, Michaela, if you can scroll down.
And Herb, you had your hand up there for a second. Herb, go ahead, Herb, while we're scrolling here. Herb? Herb, you're still on mute.
Yes, Mr.
There you
Chair,
go.
through you. Looking at the titles on these pages here, these are site plan sketches for subdivision to the Committee of Adjustment. I don't believe this is a subdivision. Oh, submission, I'm sorry. So sketches for submissions to this here. So I think this here, this is for a different type of application. I don't think it's required for all applications.
Well, I'm going
to correct me on that.
I would agree with you. I'll let Walter maybe speak briefly to that point, because I think this is an all-encompassing list. But if you look back in the 3 applications we had before this, or 2 before this, we didn't deal with all these issues on every application. We focused strictly on the areas of impact. The rest are not necessarily relevant to the question at hand. So Walter, maybe you can speak to that briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, the requirements in the application, or the application requirements for the plans. Some of these requirements, like the Mr. Murphy identified, identify all the parking stalls, show the dimensions and all things like that. Again, the driveway and location, driveway location is shown on the plan. Cars are illustrated on the plan. You can see where the garage is, whether or not cars can maneuver in and out of the garage is not really relevant to this application. So, there are some. Again, this form is intended to address applications for commercial properties, industrial properties, and residential properties. So not every one of these requirements will be relevant to specifically to an application forward to the committee.
If I can speak to that. The document that is available online for minor variance has a link that brings you specifically to this document as a description of a sketch and as a description of where the town may request a legal survey in lieu of a sketch. But this is an attachment to the instructions for a minor variance. I'm following your documents.
Yes, and as Walter said, it's an all-encompassing document for every possible application that we've ever had. But if the focus on the request is a length of building, then that's what we're going to focus on. He's put some of that information on the other information that's on your list. But I agree with Walter, like, what does the angle of the parking into his garage have to do with the variance request? He's going to have to deal with that, and he's going to have to meet code with that. And but we're here to decide whether the length of the building is a reasonable request or a minor variance. So I'm going to have you move along with your presentation. We hear you on the requirements, but we're going to focus strictly on what the committee is dealing with tonight. So go ahead.
I'll give you an example of how it can affect. Again, the applicant doesn't want to go through rounds and rounds and rounds of redesigning and redeveloping. I work in the industry. We know what we have to avoid. We have to get it right the first time. So something as simple as a turning circle at the front of the garage, based on the dimensions of the garage, based on the dimensions of the driveway, could later on become a problem during the permit process, and suddenly somebody's saying, we got to make some changes, we got to move something else back. Well, it is relevant.
What could happen is that we're sitting here for another minor variance for them to extend the house or move a bit further down the lot, and every inch that they place that house affects our backyard, our ability to have privacy, because the more they move down the lot, and that is extending further than our house. And the gentleman, Nick, said it's not affecting anybody.
Okay,
We have
so now
windows.
you've actually brought a relevant point for the committee to consider. So you've talked about the length of the house, how it impacts your property. So let's focus on that. Let's skip all these irrelevant parking things. And he's requested a 5-meter extension to the building beyond what the bylaw allows. So let's focus now for you, focus on how that impacts your property, and then the committee can make a decision based on that. So let's focus on the length of the building, because that's what he's requesting. Everything else he has to meet. If he doesn't, he comes back and pays another fee and another circulation, another month or two delay for a variance if he wants to. But if not, he'll have to meet all the other requirements in the bylaw. So let's stick with what's the request is tonight, because we're at the point where we're going to open it up to the committee to call for a motion.
Michaela, can you scroll up just one to the last page? Sorry, thank you. Item there, variances relating to or affecting buildings on abutting land must show the location, size, height, and use of surrounding buildings of the submitted plan. That's one element. That's relevant to the discussion we're having here. Now, Michaela, if you could scroll forward, please. You're going to scroll through pages that just show how we took the varying information and we overlaid it. This is specifically for the NPCA. You can scroll through those as well. Okay, this is just the information we use. This is the survey provided by the applicant. If you can keep scrolling.
Okay, so stop for a second. Scroll up, Michaela. I see 65 point something. You mentioned 75. That the east property line is
63.34 plus 19.1 on
Where's
the
the 19?
upside. Sorry,
Okay.
19.4.
Okay. So that looks like a common boundary between the two of you. And
Yes.
yet he's got 82.7 there on your side.
I can tell you, an accuracy, looking at the iron bar and the end of the fence, the end of the fence and the iron bar is matching exactly what's on site. It's the furthest point out that's not matching. And you'll see that if we scroll through. You can keep going, Michaela. Okay, this is the survey that we provided the gentleman who was going to do the survey, and you'll see that on the lake, where it says Lake Ontario, that's a pretty straight line. And you'll see from pictures, aerial views that are on the town site, you'll see from aerial views that is in fact a straight line. If you can continue scrolling. This is in fact our legal survey with a stamp. So again, same dimensions, same picture. Keep scrolling, please.
What's the date of that survey?
I can't see it from here.
Because it'll be the water's edge. I'm sure that's measured too, which is probably a different water level than when it was measured today or this year.
You'll see from pictures is exactly the same.
Next one
Scroll down, please.
is the town.
This
Mr.
is
Chair, can I make a comment?
Yep. Go ahead, Nick.
I just want to advise my beautiful neighbor that he's arguing on legality, which is nothing to do with the Committee of Adjustment, me, you, and everybody else. He can go to land registry, obtain the current land registry drawing, and fit whatever. If it's half of my land is his, half of it is mine. That's nothing to do with the committee. I'm just asking for one simple question. I want to extend my house. I don't believe he understands the whole concept of things. Like he took all this time to elaborate on something we have nothing to do with it. We respect him, we love him, and we care for him. But however, his comments has nothing to do with my project. My project as a licensed architect and professional engineer, I don't do stupid thing. I do. He says my house is only go 3-4 feet, 5 meters away from his house. But if you draw a 45-degree angle from his house, I not interfere with his view or anything else to do with him and his property, where his property is. He is governed by the government of Ontario and Canada. So he has nothing to do with it.
No, I
bonding and
agree.
stuff like
I
that.
agree. Okay.
So,
Michaela, carry on through this quickly.
Nick brings up a good point. He mentioned that he's not interfering with our view. He's proposing that his house will go deeper than our house. That is in fact interfering with our view. You're also saying this is a minor variance. It's a 25% increase to the length of your home. This next drawing you're looking at, this is the document where it says that was from the town of Grimsby. It's noted as the town of Grimsby below. This is where it was separated into two lots, etc. So again, we use this information as well. So we keep scrolling.
And in that document, it agrees with the length of our survey from the town of Grimsby.
This is confirmation of the dimensions. Please keep going. This here is an overlay of, and you'll see there's three overlays. You'll see our property on the bottom side. You'll see the block of the drawing you just saw overlaid. And you'll notice that on the right-hand side, there's a section projecting past the blue line and goes up to the top level, and it projects across the west side of the property. And there's a gap there between those two lines of 450. This is overlaid on top of the document, the survey supplied by the applicants. So here it is, it's in front of your eyes, and I'll show you more pictures. You can actually see like this piece of that they showed jutting out, it doesn't exist. So if we let ourselves believe that the dimensions from the back don't relate to the dimensions from the front, we're suffering an illusion. This site has legal property bars, legal property lines that have to be satisfied. So
Yeah.
by this thing being 7.2 meters long, it's ludicrous to accept this for anything or to have any discussion to do with the depth of the property or the depth of the building. And this becomes more complex as you get over to lot number part 1, because that building is in fact going to be inside the said restricted area.
Right, and that's what the NPCA will catch. But it is possible to own land under the water. That projection you're talking about is underwater, but that was probably part of the lot prior to the lake level raising. So, anyways, carry on, Michaela, because we're going to be here all night dealing with something that's not related.
Can we just scroll back to the last drawing, please?
No, keep scrolling forward, Michaela.
It's very important to what you just said. Can you scroll back to the last drawing, please?
I'm not dealing with the length of the
lot.
All
right, well, I'll show you on a different drawing. Let's keep going.
He's going to stop you.
Adam, go ahead.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, I just want to thank the Murphys they put a lot of detail into their presentation, but I guess really the question I have is, if they look at the application that shows where the proposed home is going to be in their home, how do they feel about the length of the home there and the location?
Obviously,
that is the question.
It's not desirable for the adjoining property to project past our home. Also, let's scroll forward to one drawing that'll answer all of this. Down towards, keep scrolling, I'll tell you when to stop. Okay, just stop here a second. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. Just for the record, yeah, these are the dimensions. Next slide, please. Yeah, this slide here. This information is taken off the city records, and currently the three lots together come to a total area of 4,539.3 meters squared over on the table on the right-hand side below the small gray box on an angle. The number directly below that at the bottom is 426.84. The survey provided with this applicant is, for the three lots, is saying that the property is 426.84 square meters larger than what is on City Rec file at 4,112.46. So
again, Tony, you're dealing with a surveying issue, not a minor variance request. As Adam mentioned, as I said at the very beginning, we're dealing with the length of the house. So focus on the impact of that additional length extending beyond, from what we can tell, beyond the back of your house. That's what we're dealing with. He's
Very
not
good.
in short. He's not
we can
short on
scroll-
land area.
If we can scroll down, please. Keep going. That's just more information showing the same. Here we go. Stop there, please. Okay. If you look at the small box in the top right corner, you'll see the star is the property line of the two properties meeting. And the projection on the yellow line, that's a 7.2 meter projection. Now, you can see the black line, which is the property line. That's original, that's on city documents. You can see it on the main drawing. What this affects is the yellow lines that you see is the potential hazard zones. If Nick proceeds with the design and gets a wonderful plan developed, and then the NPCA turn around and say, that's wonderful, but you can't build it here. That's too late because Nick's already spent a whole lot of money and time is more valuable than money. So you can see where, if you go scroll to the next picture, please. Scroll to the next picture. Sorry, back up one picture. Okay. If you take the line of the fence and the next property has the concrete block wall that ends at our property line. The inside line of the concrete wall on next property is the dimension 75.5 meters. If you could scroll back to the previous drawing. By the way, just notice the building line. Yeah, scroll out to the next drawing. No, sorry.
Herb, you had a question?
Sorry.
You have your hand up?
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think the items that Mr. Murphy is putting forward to us is something that he should be presenting to the Niagara Conservation Authority, and they will be addressing these issues. We do not address those issues because they have the expertise in determining the top of bank and et cetera. So these are items you should be bringing to the Conservation Authority. This is not something that the committee looks at.
Right.
Sorry,
So I'm going to have you, I've given you 30 seconds to wrap it up. Tony, you've had enough time, and then I'm going to open it up to the committee members to ask questions, and then we're going to make a decision. Thank you. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Can we scroll back up, please?
One more.
Stop.
The line of the houses the way they are, with their proposed, their house would extend beyond our house. The way the houses are positioned is to give privacy to everybody, and you're not looking in at somebody else. This will be 25 feet longer. That will affect our privacy. It will affect our view. So
that's what you could have started with. Thank you. Okay. So now I'm going to open it up. You've had your turn. Now I'm going to open it up to the committee members to ask questions of the applicant or anybody else. Go ahead. Somebody had their hand up. No?
Can I make a comment?
Is there anybody else in the audience? First, I'll just open it up. Is there anybody else, any other delegates, Michaela, on this one?
No. We
No?
heard from
Okay.
both that signed up.
Okay. Nick, go ahead.
Yes, in regard to the privacy, our house extended by about 6 feet, not 25 feet, 27 feet. She's mistaking the 27 feet. Our house is only extended by 6 feet, and we go out and it's a solid wall. There is no way of interfering with their privacy. So therefore, that shouldn't be a concern. And regard to the rest of it, I think they're off the subject and All I'm asking is an extension of the house from 20 meter to 25.7 meter or whatever that is. And that's all I'm asking. But I thank you, everybody, for the greatness. And I enjoy talking to pleased to meet my neighbor on the web, and all the best to them and to everybody else. And thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Nick.
Go, Adam, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if planning or perhaps the Murphys have a number on what's the length of their building presently?
What is the length of our building? I couldn't give that to you right at the moment without maybe being inaccurate. How do you see that being relevant?
I'm just
Adam?
trying to determine if it's going to be consistent with.
Yeah,
the,
if I can
neighboring property.
intervene and you look at the survey, it can tell you. The dotted line in my house is 5 feet. So it's their house is 6 feet behind me.
Well, that's what I have to acknowledge that Tony perhaps did bring something to my attention, is that the plan doesn't show how far your proposed building will extend past the Murphy. So that's kind of picking up where Adam
maximum less than 10 feet, less than 10 feet.
But it doesn't show that. There's no dimension. Like I can't tell how
do
far
apologize
your
for that,
building
yes.
will go past their building at the back. It looks like your front are lined up, the front of the house with your front proposed, but I can't tell how far that would take your building if we grant the variance.
I can assure you it's maximum 10 feet.
Do we have confirmation of that somehow, somewhere? Walter, go ahead.
I was able to measure on our GIS system the approximate depth of Mr. Murphy's house, and it's approximately, it's somewhere between 22 and 23 meters.
So it would have been longer than.
So it's minus 8 feet, 8 feet out. Yeah.
So worst case, it's 22, which would put it about 3 meters, 3.3 meters. So about 10 feet beyond.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for that clarification. No? If not, then do I have a motion on this application? The motion is written as follows. To permit a building depth of 25.3 meters, whereas 20 meters is permitted. Anyone like to make a motion on that with reasons for that, or denial with reasons, given what you've heard this evening? Dylan, go ahead.
I so move the motion to permit a building depth of 25.3 meters, whereas 20 meters is permitted, that it be approved, in that it meets the foretest of the variance is minor, the variance is appropriate for the subject lands, the variance meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan, with the condition that the application receive NPCA or Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority approval for the construction of the proposed dwelling.
Any seconder? Herb? Any further discussion on this application or this motion, sorry? All those approve, say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any? Was carried. So it was approved, subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Okay, thank you for attending. Now, I
want to thank you, the committee.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I want to thank the committee and Mr. Basic and the staff, Michaela and Ms. McKnight, for the great job, and thanks my neighbor for spending all this time and energy, you know, and we're looking forward to help them to achieve the best for their convenience and our convenience, and I thank the city of Grimsby for a great job, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate it, and have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you for attending. I believe it's probably the very similar group for the next one. Michaela, or the same group?
Yeah, it's the same group.
Okay, then we won't go through outlining the procedures. Just go ahead into the application. So this is for 138 Olive Street, Part 1.
Yeah, so the next one is application number A1422, 138 Olive Street, Part 1, So this is the more westerly lot.
We went.
So they are requesting minor variances to facilitate the construction of a new single detached two-story dwelling. There's 2 variances requested. The first one is for building depth.
Sorry, Michaela, just 2 seconds. Nick, can we get you on mute or is Nick on this next application? If he's not, maybe we should.
Nick?
Nick?
If anyone wants to listen, I can mute him, I think.
Can you mute him?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got the.
Thank you.
Okay, so the 2 variances, the first one is to permit a building depth of 36.99 meters, whereas 20 is what is permitted, as well as to permit a 6.96 meter garage projection past the front wall of the first story of the dwelling, whereas garage projections are not permitted. So here is the site plan. It's what was circulated on the notice, highlighting where the 2 variances are measured from. The elevations of the proposed dwelling. So the front, so the south elevation, and then the back of the house, which is the north elevation. And then the side elevations. So the east on the top and the west underneath. Aerial photography of the neighborhood showing the context of the neighboring properties. Again, it's the same image that was shown for part 4. So the current status of the site as of October 2021. And for correspondence from planning, no objections. The same condition for part 4, which is that the applicant receive NPCA approval for the construction of the proposed dwelling. From Niagara Region, there were no objections. From the Conservation Authority, no objections. And again, similar to part 4, the lot falls within NPCA regulated areas. Therefore, all future development or site alteration will require circulation to the NPCA and an NPCA works permit. From Grimsby Power, no objection. Same comment again, they're already working with the applicant for electrical servicing. Heritage, no objections, and Fire, again, no objections. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the owner or their agent here? Monique or Mark?
Yes.
Go ahead. Did you wish to add or elaborate on the application or the request this evening?
Maybe if Michaela can throw the drawing up just so we can comment on what we've done to give the committee an idea of what our objectives were. So I guess what should be noted is being a corner lot, the measurements are a little bit different, that you come in off the front property line from the frontage, project back, determines the front of our house, and the back of the house is taking the back lot line projecting up. So it's a little bit of a funky angle that becomes the measurement. This design, on the south side, we pulled the garages forward so that we could give our neighbor at 140 some view of the lake. So we wanted to pull that corner back, which creates a problem for our projection coming in front of the house and extends the length. And then on the east side, that part of the house we tried to push back so that when the house in the middle comes in, it has a fluid kind of connection between the houses and then next. So we were just trying to make it look at the big picture to try to make it fit in properly. And that's kind of throwing our numbers a little bit extreme by doing that.
And we also had to angle the front of the house quite a bit just so that from the road, the house had a better view. Otherwise, you'd be kind of seeing the side of the house. So that also pulled that angle a little bit steeper, which lengthened the house.
But ultimately, we're just asking for the extension, which is that diagonal, and the projection of the garage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members first? No, none. Then I'll open it up to the members of the public. We'll start. Amiro, did you wish to comment?
Yes. Now, by looking at this, it looks like it's a wrong house for the wrong property. The house is way too big. It doesn't fit the property. Like he wants to go back extra 20 meters. That's like 55 feet. So when I'm gonna build my house beside him, I'm gonna be staring at the whole house on the right side. I'll be looking at a bunch of bricks. It's gonna block the view completely of the lake on that side.
So Miro, explain again where you are in relation to this proposal.
I am on. I don't know. Do you have a sketch?
We have the application. Are you to the west, immediately to the west?
Yes.
Do you have the aerial photo, Michaela, that you can pull up?
Yeah, there you go. So I'm to the west, that big empty lot. So
Okay.
I'll be building the house right beside the property line where this house is gonna be built. But the way, like, he's going back quite a bit. Like that's crazy. 20 meters. Then he's allowed. That's like extra 55 feet.
Right, but you did see the presentation, right? The request really comes because of the funny angle of the lot and the projection of it, because when you look at the backyard, now we don't have the benefit of Nick's proposal here, but
yeah,
I'm assuming that Nick's proposed backyard is almost in line with this proposal. Am I understanding that correctly, Walter?
Mr. Chairman, if I can comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Soilmat Engineering has been involved in determining top of slope, and we've gone through that whole process to make sure that the lines of the property are all in the buildable envelope. So we've gone through that, and that line does carry across through into next property. So it'll be a straight line, or like an angled line parallel with the lake.
Right, that's what I thought. So is that clear, Mayor? Like his backyard, it sounds like 50 on paper, but it's the angle that house is sitting. It's taken from the very front corner of the garage, and because it wraps around, right?
Yeah.
So that line, so the back line, as I understand it, lines up with the back line of Nick's proposed house as well. Maybe Michaela can highlight that with a cursor.
I don't know, like, if I can see it somewhere, but it doesn't look like it.
Michaela, can you run the cursor over the proposed rear projected line there and line it straight down south, or I guess east? Where is?
Sorry, Kevin, I don't know if I follow what you're requesting.
Well, he's concerned about the rear projected line. So just go up a little bit on your cursor. Oh, you were there. You were there. Keep, so the end or the right of that blue line, the building, that one right there. So if you go follow that black line up and down, the rear project that one. So that line, if you keep going south, that's going to be the same backyard as Nick's, as I understand it, right? Is that right, Mark?
Yes, correct. Yeah, there's actually two different setbacks when you deal with NPCA, one for the building and then one for other structures like the pool, and it's 7.5, 7.5, and I've detailed those all in the drawing there.
Okay. Herb, you had your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was just looking at that as well. There's the two lines there that have the slope line closest to the lake. And then there's one 7.5 meters back from that, which is another slope line. I believe that's what you're talking about, Mark.
Yeah, and I'll note that the dotted lines are the engineered lines. That solid line that the chairman was referring to was just picking up the property lines, projecting forward to find the point closest to the rear line. So that's actually not parallel to those lines. That's just the rear projection property line projected forward. Those dotted lines are the actual NPCA and Soilmat engineer lines. So I don't want to deceive anybody that thinks that that solid line is the actual property projection line. It's the dotted lines.
It's my understanding is it's not the property, it's the building projection line.
The solid line is the property line projected back, because my understanding of finding the point to measure from was to take the property line at the very back, pull it forward until it touches the building. The first point it touches is what we use as the point to measure.
Okay.
Gotcha. Does that help, Herb? Adam, do you had your hand up before we go back to
thank you,
Miro?
Mr. Chair. I just want to ask Mr. Miro, sorry, I don't know his last name, if he's seen the proposed elevations of the home that's being proposed to be built.
No,
Miro? No?
no.
Do you have them now? There.
Yeah, do they have the west elevation?
So that would be the,
There'll be a lot of windows to look at.
now
Yeah,
can
so
I
I'm just
ask,
wondering if you feel that would reflect on the privacy of your backyard.
The windows, and there's no measurements of the house or the lot.
so Miro, I have a question for you. Your
Yeah.
lot is, how deep is your lot? Because you go all the way to the service road, right?
Yes,
So how deep is your lot? Like, why are you building that? I'm just asking. You're planning to build all the way back in the far corner or
all the
corner?
way back, completely back as far as I can, as he's doing it, because that's why you bought the lake front lot.
Right,
Yeah, the lake.
right.
But if he pushes back, he's gonna block my view on the right. On the left, everybody zigzags. So you get a view from the left of the house. On the right, you're slightly blocked, but he's gonna be blocking quite a bit.
But
It's
if,
not just a little bit.
but if I hear what they said just before, the backyard will be in line with the other backyards because they're all following the same lake setback. So you would also be able to build just as far back without a variance, provided your building isn't as deep, but your backyard can, or back wall of your building can go just as far as his. So you'll be in
Yes.
line with that back.
Yeah, I'll have to ask for variance also because of he's asking for a variance. So I'll be asking for a variance just to be in line with his line.
Well, his line is only the depth of the building, not the setback from the back lake. That's the NPCA's control.
Yes, yes. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, I feel the house is too big. Like he need to shorten it in the front instead of having, I don't know, he's got 3 garages there and a veranda or something. He can shorten it.
Okay, thanks for those comments. Sorry, I have to go back to the screen again to see who else has their hand up. Tony?
Yeah, my question is, this is the first time we've seen the elevations of this house. My question is this a 3-story house?
Mark?
Oh, it's a 2-story with a walkout.
2-story with a walkout.
So from the street, it'll be 2 stories?
Yes.
Where's the walkout?
Out the back.
The basement at the back?
Yeah.
But I don't understand.
When you're coming from 134 across, there's an elevation drop.
There is an elevation drop.
Yep.
Yes.
Will it need to be excavated further?
No.
So it's a walkout basement, basically.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Just on the back. At the front, it'll be the regular
Street level.
2-story, but then as you come around the back, because what happens is because we're a corner lot, if you can imagine 140, which is going down towards the service road, their basement and their property slope down. So our side of our house is kind of picking up their rear yard and it swales around to those 3 lots as it comes across. So there's an elevation change.
So with the elevation change then, from Miro's perspective, it won't look like a 2-story house, it will look like a 3-story house.
From
From the
Side
back
yard.
part of it, it could, yes.
Okay, and that's probably why he's saying it looks like too much house.
Right.
Question, the covered deck at the back, that's not a separate structure. That appears that the roof continues of the house continues out over that.
Correct, but my understanding, and we've confirmed that, is that it's from the foundation of the house, not the deck. The deck's not considered.
But if it's one structure, it's one building.
Not based on what Grimsby's planning has told us, that the back point is from the corner of the foundation of the house, not from the deck, even though the deck's attached.
But the house roof continues out, so it's a projection as part of the house. We had a house like that before where the roof projected out, and the footprint of the house was in fact the footprint of the roof.
Maybe Walter can
comment to that, because we're just following what the bylaws had laid out.
Walter?
Yeah, the depth of the building doesn't include unenclosed porches or decks. Does not include. Sorry, you didn't hear it.
Okay, if you could, I just would like to visit one of the slides on our presentation, please. It's somewhere in midway. It's
if we can keep it focused to the application in hand, yes.
Very quick, and it'll be helpful to all of you.
Yep. Michaela?
Which slide is it?
Yeah, if you could get down 6, 7, 8 slides, please. Going. Keep going. Keep going. There we go. Yeah, if you can spread down. Okay, so here you see this is an overlay of the two houses on the property, and I hate to say it again, but this is where the 7.2 meters becomes more critical, because it pushes. You'll see that the two green lines are the lines that.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Chairman, we've gone down this, and we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk.
I know you're not. I know you're not. But you're at the end of the day, it's going to have to be talked about. But there, for Michaela's benefit, for Mike's benefit, there's the footprint of your home. Mike, you can see your property line on the pink line following through. That shows the layout of the two houses as it relates to our property and Mike's property. Any help, Mike?
Yep.
Mike? Is that you're talking about Mike or Mark? Sorry.
Miro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
this helps, Miro, this helps explain that I was trying to get Michaela to draw or with their cursor.
Yes.
So yeah. He's kind of following that line.
No, he's not. You can see it clearly, the line there. It's going right, the dotted line. It's pink or whatever, purple. It's going right through the house there. Following that, part 4, right? That skinny house. Follow the line,
right?
And it's going right through his house. You can see it.
Tony, explain the purple line, dotted line to the left, because is that based on your survey or the?
It's based. I've been on site. I've measured the site backwards and frontwards, and I can tell you that the dimensions of the site are not represented by the purple line on the right hand side.
Okay.
The purple line is basically a straight line for all intents and purposes, and measuring 15 meters off the inside of the wall, 7.5 and 7.5. So that's the same lines that Mark talked about, but they're shifted in by 7.2 meters. And I would ask the question, the wall that had been removed, that wall, from talking to the previous owner when he was living here, that wall was where the 7.5 meters was to be measured from.
Right, but that's why the motion reads that the applicant receive NPCA approval for the construction of the proposed dwelling. So again, I'm going to reiterate, you don't work for the Conservation Authority, neither do we. They're going to come out and measure it, and they're going to have to, Mark is going to have to satisfy that line is what he's showing on his plan, and he has to meet their requirements. We can't do anything about it. So even if we approve this evening, he's going to have to still satisfy the NPCA. So you can take it up with them maybe and show them your drawings and see if it has any merit, but we can't make that decision. And again, the second check here is the NPCA's approval. So we can approve it and it may still be denied.
If I can just, I'm not here, we're not here to object. We're happy to see the properties being developed. But the last thing we want to be doing is doing this time and time again, which I'm telling you right now, we're going to be sitting here many, many times. It would be better to get it right the first time and not have to redo it.
We hear you. Any other questions? Michaela, I'm going to have to get you to go to the full screen again so I can see if there's other hands up.
I think Miro has his hands up.
Yeah, sorry, Miro, go ahead. I didn't see you.
Yes. A while back, I talked to Mark, and he told me he's gonna excavate the back right beside my property, right at the property line. He's gonna lower the backyard, and also he wants to open up the seawall and create right at my property line, and remove the stones and create a flat deck or some sort of thing. So that kind of scares me too, you know, like he's gonna destabilize my my backyard by doing so. So I don't know if he's still planning on doing that or.
Mark?
We're discussing concepts of changing the back wall, but that's not really part of today's discussion. We don't even know ourselves what we're doing. We do want to do something to the back wall, but it will be with approved drawings through NPCA. Like, we're not doing anything without the proper authorities approving on this stuff and engineers putting in drawings, etc. I will comment about the grading along our property line is on Miro's property, it is higher, but that's been an ongoing issue with all the properties on Olive Street, that his grading has been raised over the years. And there's a drainage issue, and we have to have that lower grading because the town wants us to be able to draw 140s water off their property. Like, we can't go up higher. So even the comment about us looking like a 2.5 story from Miro's side, it's the same as all the other 14 houses. Like, that's what they look like. They have their 2 stories and their basement. We have a grading issue that we have to drain our neighbor's house down our property into the lake. And that's kind of what's started the whole design of the house. Like, we've tried to work with what we've got. Miro's is higher, but there's going to be a trench or French drain or whatever they've called it that takes that water from 140 down, because right now it's getting flooded because on our property there was even water or dirt put up to stop the water coming from Miro's lot onto ours. So they just created like a swamp at the back of 140.
I don't think so.
Well,
did you raise the land, Miro, over the years?
No, the property was never raised in the back at all. It's original from, I don't know, 20 years ago. Nothing was raised there. There was bushes there for 20 years.
But I'm just talking about the grading at the back on our property. We've been told by the surveyors, this is where you have to be because you have to drain 140's water. So that's kind of the underlining pitch we have to match.
It has to be.
Yeah. And back at the side of our house, yes, looks on Miro's, and we contacted Miro. We said, let us know what your house plans are. We'll try to work with you, put windows, put stuff so they're not in your way.
Well, you won't be in the way if you build it according to the line there. That's all.
Miro wouldn't change the length of the house on the property line wouldn't change. The only thing that would change is the garage would get pushed back and the front of our house would come forward because our depth is diagonal. It won't change the length of that house coming on your side. And the back of our house looks like the other 14 houses that are all going to face your house. Like, that's, you're backing onto 14 houses. We're just the next one.
And also,
go ahead, Miro.
Why are you like, on my side, why are you like, let me see, 1.8 meters between the property lines, and on the other side you got 2.54 meters?
Because the NPCA has requested that we have a 5-meter entrance to the property shared upon those 2 properties, and Nick has the same thing. We have 2 5-meter access ways shared with the middle lot, so it's an NPCA requirement.
Okay.
So he does meet the side yard, I take it, Mark, on both sides. The 1.8 and the 2.5 both meet the side yard requirements?
We do. Jeff.
Well,
Yeah.
in the front, he's got 1.82, so it's like 5 feet 11 inches instead of 6 feet.
Well, the requirement is 1.8. Correct?
1.8. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, it's 1.8. Any other questions or comments? If not, then do I have, Adam, sorry.
Yeah, actually, it's to the applicants. I'm just wondering when we split the lots, I think it was in July of 2021, were you anticipating having a building of that depth?
Of that depth, well, it was through the design process when we ended up putting the garages in the corner. We didn't really think ahead until we started planning with the house.
The angle really
And the angle of that
changed it, yeah.
lot creates the garages and then the house. So really that's what you're getting is the side of the garages and then the house. So even from a privacy point for Miro,
Half of it's garage.
the bulk of it's garage. So it really isn't, the living part of the house is towards the end. And you can't build down there because it's coming back on that angle. So our garages don't have much overlooking his property.
Maybe not, but you're blocking the view of the lake on the right side of my property.
Yeah, but
Because
regardless
Keep
of that
in mind, keep in mind though, we hear this all the time. You don't have a right to a view. That's
Yeah.
the common law here.
That's right.
You
Of
don't have a
course.
right to a view.
No.
that's like me saying I don't want Miro to build his house because he'll block my view.
Exactly, right? Miro, you're going to block their view. It goes both ways.
Of course. So I'll be asking for variances too because of Mark. So
Adam, did
Simple
you
as
have
that.
another question?
Yeah, not just more a comment. I just have an issue with the depth of the building because I think I calculated it's 184% over what the zoning bylaw permits. And I mean, if you look at what we just approved at part 4, which was I think 25 meters, I believe. I mean, I consider that a reasonable deviation from the bylaw, but 184% is a lot for me.
I guess my comment is that we have to keep in consideration that we're on a corner lot, so we're being measured differently. Like we could make the 20 meters by pushing a garage back and bringing the front of the house up, but that messes up lot 140 and 136 and a half. Like it doesn't make to a conducive corner.
Dylan?
Sorry, I guess that's what I've been sort of struggling with, as to sort of this measurement. I mean, I don't know if Walter can help us here. Like when you look at what is permitted, the 20 meters versus, now the 37, it does seem like a lot, but the homeowners are saying, but we're measured differently. So if we were to normalize it, what would would a normalization of the 20 change? Like, this is what I'm not quite understanding is, how differently, like, how are they measured differently because it's a corner lot? Maybe I'm just not too thick to understand, but it seems like we just did one lot and I can see the change. And now this one, it seems now we're measuring differently. So what's the factor here then?
Walter?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. There are a couple of things you'll have to consider. And again, as you've probably appreciate with other variances that you've considered, it's the factor of what percentage over the requirement you are doesn't play the largest role in determining whether or not something is minor. The biggest considerations relate to the area and the surrounding built form that you have. I'll have to say that this particular house isn't the deepest house on the street. There are just 3-4 lots over. There are houses that are well over 40 feet, right? So you have to take that into account also. This house is not unusual in terms of depth for Olive Street, on the north side of Olive Street, backing onto the lake. But in terms of how the depth is measured, it is unusual because you're not measuring from a flat wall to a flat wall. You're measuring from a corner to a corner, and the corner corner to corner measurement is always going to be bigger than from so if you get a square, the distance from the corner of a square to the other corner of a square, the opposite corner of the square, is always going to be bigger than any of the sides of the square. So just by virtue of the way it had to be measured, that kind of skews the measurement. So the house isn't actually that deep. It's actually a little bit shallower than that dimension, simply because of the way it's measured and the way it's defined in our zoning bylaw.
Does that help, Dylan? Yeah, it's not a mathematical, minor isn't a mathematical equation. We talked about that. It's this one is a particularly strange one because of the shape that the lot was created and the house that results from the shape of it. So Herb, you had a question?
Thanks for the clarification.
Yes, Mr. Chair. To Walter, if the south property line were the front of the property, what would the distance of the building be then? The full length of the building onto the rest of the property. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't measure it, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So the distance from the southwest corner to the end of the building, the building length is how long? I don't see it on here. Maybe Mark could elaborate on that. And the setback there is
from what corner? So the corner, the angled wall corner?
The southwest corner. That's over.
It's on an angle though, right, Herb? You're talking about the angled corner of the garage?
Yes.
So from that corner to the corner of the house, not the deck, it's approximately 32 meters.
32 meters. So from there. So that's why it's being measured back from there and not from the where your driveway comes in at the street. Right?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question.
Yeah, Walter, why? Maybe you can explain why is it done on a funny angle? Sorry, but
yeah, it's measured. That's right,
and not the 32 meters.
Right, it's measured from the closest. Actually, it's not 32 meters. It's a little bit more than that, because if you measure it from the wall that's parallel to the side lot line and measure it to the back of the house, it'd be more than 32 meters. But anyway, the reason it's the closest portion of the building to the street, to the farthest portion of the building.
Oh, right. Yeah. So it gets caught on an angle.
That's right.
Does that help, Herb? So roughly it's 32, maybe a little bit more if it was a straight line along basically the west lot line.
Yeah, it would be more than 32, yeah, because if you're going right to the lot line, it's about 52 feet for the house, and sorry, I don't have it metric, and then another almost 60 feet for the garages, because it's 3 garage bays.
34 meters.
And then your distance, your setback from the south property line.
Right.
And can I just say that the way the house sits, our garages are actually set back from our neighbor's house. And we line up with where the house will be compared to the other 2 houses that are building to our east. So when you look at it, driving past it, it will not seem as big as it does on the footprint. Because of that angle, we're still set quite back into it. We're not projecting more than the other houses. We're actually set back.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yes. I have a question.
Sorry, I didn't see your, oh,
Sorry.
Tony? I can't see you. I can only see Tony. Sorry.
Oh,
So my question is, and it refers back to the question that Adam placed, was that when these people bought all this property, it has come to a big surprise to them that they need to lengthen their house further than what is allowed by the town and by such a large amount. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're saying through the design process, to make the house look right on the lot, we've had to angle it to quite a degree that it does extend the house longer than what we anticipated it would be. Yes.
Like the architect started with the design that comes in a lot shorter than this 35 meters that we're asking for, but it still has the same length of wall on Miro's back line, because the way it's measured is from the front point to the back point. So
yeah, but we're looking at an application for a minor variance of how many feet?
17 meters.
You're looking for 17 meters
17
longer.
meters.
Sorry?
17 meters, yeah, 36.99 down
Okay.
to 20,
So-
or up from 20.
So these are $1 million properties. It was originally bought by you as 2 lots. Am I correct?
correct?
Yes.
Yeah. You put yourself in a position that you chopped up these 2 lots into 3, and you are a victim of your own chopping up the land because you knew you were trying to get 3 lots out of 2. So you're saying that, oops, I didn't realize.
No.
But it was not because you bought the land as it was and then went, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. You actually designed the lot yourself, and you knew what type of house that you were looking for, and you have an architect that you say would be able to build it to the requirements of the town, but yet you want the town to give you a minor variance. I don't think that's fair to the other property owners around.
Well, in all
You're asking for something.
Hold on, Mark, let her
that
finish.
nobody else
Mark,
has
let her
got.
finish.
And you designed this yourself. You designed the properties, and you want to have everything in there the way you designed. You're not a victim of the property being that way. You actually made the property that way. So I don't think as a resident, you are entitled to ask for more than what everybody else gets.
To be honest.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Monique.
I was just going to say, we aren't asking for more than other houses on our street. It's just what the town's provisions are. We are over, but it's not asking for more than what's already on our street.
And to comment to the idea of the 3 lots, yeah, we did have a plan based on this lot that has a shorter depth. But when we looked at the impact it has on 140 and the impact it has on 136, it was not ideal. Our garage was sitting behind the backyard of 140 to push that front of house back. And it wasn't fair to that person that their backyard became our front yard. So we pulled the garage forward, and we don't want to pull the garage forward because if you look at the layout of the garage, we've angled the back of our garage at an added expense where it would be cheaper to push it back and make that line shorter. But we're giving that property owner at 140 a better view and protecting their backyard. So we've pulled it forward. The east corner of our house, we've pushed it back where naturally coming forward would have been easier to make the house that goes in the middle lot have a further setback. So we have a lot design that would fit into the 25, 26 meter, but when you shift the garage and the right side of the house to kind of conform to the rest of the houses and make it better, you end up with this funky 36 meter projection, which is not more than the rest of the houses on Olive Street. We did have a plan based on that lot. It's just once you put it into real world and look at the neighbor's impact, we adjusted for them to make it so that they have privacy and the other house has a bigger front yard.
If I can just
One more time. Go ahead, Tony.
you know, you mentioned you're taking into consideration 140 and 136. That's wonderful. Could we ask for the same consideration with the other house on part 4, which you yourself had some involvement with as well? You know, the words are wonderful, but the reality is you created this situation, and you know, you're a developer, good on you. But there's no illusion here as to how this, and I believe at one point you were talking about splitting this into 4. So this went from 4 to 3, and you know, let's call it what it is. You're asking to do something. You're asking the town to bend, you know, give you a 17 on 20, 17 meters on 20 meters. That is not a minor variance. That's a major variance. And you know, the houses on the other properties, you can't compare this property to the properties with the larger homes on the other end. Those properties are gigantic, and they are also wider. So they're larger lots, they're larger properties, they're best suited. You know, you bought a lot on a corner, this is what you got, and now you want more. And this is where the 7.2 meters will become a reality, because you're teetering on the area of what will the NPCA say, and then you're also teetering on the idea of what will the NPCA say if I want to modify the wall at the shore edge. So again, there's going to be many more of these meetings as this continues.
Can I ask one question that I don't think we have
briefly.
the details of? Yeah. You know the way houses are supposed to have a certain percentage of the land, cover the land, and so much land around it. What is the allowance for that area to have a house? What percentage of that lot should be house and what percentage should be land?
Walter can answer that. Walter, put you on the spot. Lot coverage.
Yeah, thank you. If you just bear with me for a second while I track down.
I believe it's zoned 35.
I think we're 45% or 3.45 is the zoning, I think.
RD 3.45? What you said? Yeah, just give me a minute. Full computer, sorry. Here we are. RD 3.45, so 45% coverage.
And I take it you're well below that?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that stay within the 45% coverage?
Yes.
That would have been checked. That would have been checked by planning as well as part of the application. So I'm going to say yes.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? First, back to the committee. No?
I think Miro had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Miro.
Yeah.
One more time, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Yes. So, you know, by looking at the blueprint there, that looks like he's covering like 50%, if not more.
Well, I'm sure staff would have checked it.
Yeah.
Walter's shaking his head, so.
And again, it's not minor variance, it's major variance. It's not a small thing, so.
Okay, thank you for those comments.
And then if that thing ever passes, you know, I'm totally losing confidence in Grimsby Town Hall.
Okay, any other questions
That's
or
all.
comments? If not, then we're going to ask for a motion from the committee. Just got to make sure. And the reasons? Not everybody at once. Adam?
I'm gonna motion to deny on the basis that the variances are not minor. Like I said, it's just too big of a house for the lot. If it was a wider lot and they could have adjusted it other ways, I would have no problem with it. But like I say, when I look at the length of 140, it's 20 meters, and then the other one we approved is 25. Yeah, it doesn't meet the minor test.
Okay, seconder on that motion to deny. Anyone? Nobody? Okay, first time I've had this. Michaela, help me out here. Do we just ask for a motion to approve? Herb? So you're on mute, Herb.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I just have a question for the applicant. I'm sorry. On your application, you show a 3-car garage. Would you be able to cut that down to a 2-car garage and be able to make your variance smaller?
Well, I guess the challenge by doing that is you pull the right side of the house up, which will make the neighboring house, it won't flow in with that. And the idea was to set that right corner back and keep some distance from the front of the house to the steps, because otherwise the steps now are pulling closer to the where the driveways are coming in, because that 3rd-car garage is kind of giving that gap or that setback. So sure, it could be done, but in all fairness, and I'm just talking out loud, before we would do that, we would probably just push the 3rd garage back into the corner and pull the front of our house up to meet the 20 meters. Because of the way that we're measured, or reduce that ask of the 36 meters, because if we push the right side of the house or pull it up and push that garage back, we might be coming and asking for 26 meters or 28 meters. So it won't change the overall design of the house. It just will impact 140, which they like the idea of us pulling the front of it so they get a view and we're not into their backyard, because that would put our front door looking into their backyard, which is what we're trying not to do.
Does that make sense, Herb?
Yeah, I just needed an explanation for that.
Okay.
So
Yep.
Thank you.
That's good. So we have no seconder on this motion. Do we have another alternative motion? Dylan?
Well, I would move that, as per the resolution, to permit a building depth of 36.99 meters, whereas 20 is permitted, and to permit a 6.96 garage projection past the front wall of the first story of the dwelling, whereas no garage projection past the front wall of the first story of the dwelling is permitted, be approved. The reason being is that it does meet the 4 tests, with a condition that the applicant receive Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority approval for the construction of the proposed dwelling.
Okay, seconder on that motion? Herb? Any further discussion on it? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? It was carried. So it was approved, subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you, everybody, for attending and your comments and feedback. Have a good evening.
Yep.
And I believe that we are adjourned. There being no further applications.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, I think Herb had a question.
Herb had a question.
Well, just before the meeting's adjourned, I have something to say to the committee.
Yep. So we'll do it after everybody's dismissed? Okay. And after recording's off?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. So we'll let everybody else go out of the meeting first.
I think they let us go.